Are you struggling for consistency in your sim racing? Does your iRating look like a roller coaster? If so, we have good news for you. The way to get more consistent is to first understand what you're doing differently than the professionals. And VRS is the answer. With our competitive subscription, you will have the telemetry, setups, tutorials, and everything else you need to fully analyze your driving. Our data packs and the ability to compare your driving with the best in the world will show you exactly where to adjust your inputs, change your driving line, and shave seconds off of your lap times. And our powerful and precise Direct Force Pro wheelbase and precision pedals are being used by some of the world's best drivers. All these champions agree that VRS hardware is not just the best on the market, it's also priced well below the competition. So if you're looking to upgrade to direct drive and the best pedals in sim racing, VRS is your answer. If you want to get better, get faster, and make it happen sooner rather than later, you owe it to yourself to find out why so many people are switching to VRS. You'll be so glad that you did. Visit www.virtualracingschool.com and learn why the best use VRS.
Howdy, 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 and welcome to the iRacing Formula 3.5 Championship here at Circuit of Barcelona, Catalunya. I am Austin. I am joined by Sebastian Bosch-Williams, and we got Jamie Fluke in the production booth. You're here live watching Apex Racing TV. And Sebastian, it's time we head back in a time to, well, pretty much 1994, the last time that this circuit was used for open wheel racing, well, high-tier open wheel racing. It's the historic version of Circuit of Barcelona, Catalunya, with that fantastic ending sector with no horrible chicanes to ruin your race.
If you are not a fan of the chicane, then you will certainly be a fan of this layout. Yeah, going
pretty much everybody in the world.
In time, pretty much everybody in the world. Well, Catalunya, it's such an iconic circuit, isn't it? If you think about Formula 1, we've got this sort of deep sort of braking zone into turn 10, really going to open up some overtaking opportunities today, I am sure. Yuki Shirakawa, they're really struggling already. Austin, I mean, once again, Formula 3.5 looks like it's going to be an absolutely barnstorming race. And we've got this long run down towards turn 1. It always really starts sort of 3 corners before the end of the lap. And that's going to just allow these drivers to slipstream, to DRS strategize themselves. It's going to be so interesting. And once again, I'm going to say, Austin, I can't wait to get this race underway.
Certainly the same here with me as well, because Barcelona, it's a fun track to drive. The racing here can kind of get a little bit hit and miss, but in these Formula 3.5 cars, the last time that I'd driven this car around here, I just had the biggest smile on my face. I was battling throughout the race. It was a lot of fun. The tires can get onto the iffy side on the end of the race. It is going to be a lot of fun for us. Tire management is going to be awesome. And this layout is going to bring the best out of all the drivers because, remember, Sector 3 is in the correct version. And I will stand on that hill to die on. I'm pretty sure everybody else is on the same hill with me, as well as Yuki Shirakawa flies through that literal flat-out right-hander. And that right-hander is so tricky. Going over that crest, and it's just, you got to keep on that power. Then a long left-hander. Now, this is the much deeper turn. It's not as hard as a braking zone as it was. I should say was, because now it's completely changed back to this version of real life.
It has. I think 2 years ago, the track changed. It's actually a little bit of a split way between what the current version is in iRacing and what we're using today. But it's got the same ideas. It's got the same principles. Easier to make an overtake into turn 10. Easier to have a little bit more side-by-side action. Eddie Samborski rounds the final corner. And for anybody that didn't hear my comments a few weeks ago, I think they're on air. I do kind of like the chicane at the end of this lap. I'm a little bit disappointed that we're not seeing it.
I'm gonna stop you right there. That was before the broadcast. And,
that was before it all blurs into one, Austin. It all blurs into one.
You've now admitted that live on air, and your entire credibility has fallen out the window.
We'll proudly stand by that point. It's you always got to have at least one controversial. Actually, let's divulge.
He's being sacked at the end of the season. Don't worry.
Samborski heading in to turn 4. Didn't have the quickest of opening laps. Austin currently in third, 2/10 away from Yuki Shirakawa, who is proving to be absolutely rapid at the moment. So too is Mehmet Taski, only 300ths of a second, I should say, away from Yuki Shirakawa's pole position time.
Yeah, Mehmet Emery Taski currently sitting in second place behind Shirakawa, just 300ths of a second. So Shirakawa and Taski, the powerhouse, is heading into this race right now. Currently in qualifying, Shirakawa just had an off-track pop up, but is leading up there and actually just parks at the line and finishes up this last time. Taski parks it at the line as well, and it heads into the pit lane. Here's Eddie Samborski headed through that final sector. 1 corner to go for Samborski. You really want to avoid the yellow curbing on the outside. Samborski using all the track, comes across the line. Does Samborski take the top of the charts? No, he doesn't. 600ths of a second behind Shirakawa.
Almost feel the frustration from that number 1 car. Samborski's lap was looking to develop. Carlos Dreshko, the man that was also quick 1 week ago, continues that run. An amazing first lap out of the gates for Carlos Dreshko up into P1, and looking like the man to beat, unless that is Austin. Sergio Macias can have an absolutely mega final corner. Can he challenge for pole position?
Looking for a Spanish 1-2 here in Barcelona, and it is going to be a 1-2 for Spain. Macias, a 1:24.094, 200ths of a second of his fellow countrymen. 2 and 3 starting, 1 and 2 currently. We still got more cars out there on the track on a lap. Javier Bamonte, Anders Sandberg, as we are watching right now. Miguel Crespo just comes across the line and puts himself into 16th place. Dennis Cornu jumps up into 14th place, finishing his qualifying session as we head back to Anders Sandberg on that back straightaway. This is where we see most of the drivers using DRS and setting up for a move heading into this corner. Now, this corner is not going to be as big as an overtaking zone as it usually is because it doesn't have that deeper and tighter, slower exit to it. So we're going to be seeing a lot more following throughout the section and a lot more drivers setting themselves up for this front straightaway. But this turn is going to be key here because it's pretty tight. You do have to lift, but it's how you take this corner is going to make your race. And DRS again down that front straightaway. Sonnenberg jumps up just by 1 position improvement up into 14th, and the last car out on track is Javier Bamonte through that final sector right now. Bamonte looking to go 3rd, make this a 1-2-3 Spain. At Barcelona comes across the line. Bamonte jumps up into 10th place.
For Spanish drivers then within the top 10, a really good showing for their home race. Everybody finished their qualifying laps fairly early on in the session. Austin, still a minute left to go. I'm just so happy for Macias and Tereshko. They were really quick 1 week ago. Things didn't necessarily work out for a few of the drivers at Road America. So to come back here to be so strong, it should be an absolutely great race. And of course,
I need to highlight this. Last time we saw this type of grid was back in Watkins Glen. Eddie Samborski in the 3rd row. And we all remember the chaos that happened at Watkins Glen.
You're certainly right, and we've actually got Yuki Shirakawa starting in and around where Samborski was. Of course, those two came to blows at Watkins Glen, so watch out for the proverbial fireworks. But of course, the run down to turn 1, it's a fairly decent run. It's a lot of time to start to squabble before you have to apply the brakes. You can get a little bit of slipstreaming off as well, and it's a fairly big braking zone, so expect to see drivers really trying to make up positions as soon as they possibly can at the start of this race, because overtaking, while it is possible, it's not necessarily as easy as maybe 1 week ago, Austin.
It really is, but here is your starting grid. Sergio Macias Starting up on pole, followed by Carlos Derecho. In second place, Yuki Shirakawa starts off in that second row, followed by Mehmet Taski, Eddie Samborski, followed by I Am Keeman, Simone Pizga, and Eric Weisemeiski. Jorge Lopez as Javier Pamanti start in the top 10 at their home race. They're followed by Phil Reed and Omar Baja in 12th place. Behind him is Theodore Burns, Anders Sandberg, Dennis Cornu, Bruno Canovas, Miguel Crespo, Jamie Byrne, Cal Young, James Byrne, and Yaya Ennis Anakin. 21 drivers on our grid here today. 4 Spaniards. Who is going to be standing on the top step of our podium here today? Well, we're about to find out as cars are getting onto the track, and it's time to get ready to rock and roll here in Spain.
It certainly is. The start is going to be really crucial here today, so watch out for drivers really trying to master their starts. You've got to be so careful bleeding that clutch out. We've seen drivers get it a little bit wrong at the start, spin up those rear wheels, and it's not that wide, this circuit. We've seen real live incidents at the start at this very circuit, so it's not as easy to get away from the line as it looks, but it will most definitely, Austin, be an absolutely enthralling race, which we've come to expect, really, from the Formula 3.5 series.
Yeah, this car is so fun to watch. It's so fun to drive, and the racing in here always is great. And this is going to be a very interesting start. I'm expecting 3 wide off the line because we all know Yuki Shirakawa is one of the fastest off the line. He might try to make it 3 wide at the start. A little bit of a false start by Sergio Matias, but he keeps the car settled down. 5 red lights, and it's green, a bad start. And look at Shirakawa splitting the middle up there. Shirakawa going for late, but he makes contact. It's happened again. No!
Austin, I'm lost for words. Huge incident. Cars flying left, right, and center. Macias leads, Weisemeiski second, Bonamati third. Pizzica is up to fourth. They're still having an accident. Austin, we were making reference to Watkins Glen. It's happened again.
I hate myself for bringing that up. Oh, no. And for about the 7th time in this season, I'm going to have to ask iRacing to put in a safety car for road course racing because, come on, man.
Okay, Macias leads from Weisemeiski. Weisemeiski is up 6 spots from where he started. James Byrne runs in 8th with Yaha Ennis Atkin in 9th. They're both up 12 places, you can see on your timing stand there. So real big gainers out of that colossal incident at the start. But of course, many drivers that have fallen foul of that start line incident. Dreshko, Samborski, Lopez. I think from what I saw, Austin, I think Dreshko did not get away from the line well. Shirakawa, I think, tried to avoid him, spun up the rear tyres, and then it all just went wrong for everybody following suit. But yeah, the race, we've still got roughly about 4 cars, you'd have to say, involved in the race win today. But still, it's going to be an absolutely enthralling race, but maybe not as many drivers as we were necessarily hoping for.
This is so unfortunate at that line. It's pretty much the exact same thing that happened at Watkins Glen. Yuki Shirakawa got a great start. They make a little bit of a contact. So what happened at Watkins Glen was Shirakawa spun the wheels off the line. This didn't happen this time. Shirakawa went for the gap, and that gap kind of closed in on him on a straightaway. And then, you know, the bowling pin reaction, dominoes reaction. The grid, the front straightaway here at Barcelona, it's held by 2 walls on the front straight, and that goes on for a little bit, but then it opens up. Unfortunately, it wasn't until then, and this chaos happens. Cars are in the pit lane right now. Jorge Lopez, Eddie Samborski, Carlos Derecho headed into the pits. Phil Reed, Omar Baja, Bruno Canovas, Miguel Crespo, Theodore Burns, and Jamie Byrne. I believe Yuki Shirakawa and I Am Keeman are heading into the pits right now, but I think Yuki Shirakawa is parked on the inside of the track right now and is not moving, as well as I Am Keeman. We got 2, they're still out there on the track, they're just parked. We got 9, I think 9 cars that were not involved in that or haven't gone to the pit lane without any damage, and we got even less that do not have any damage or were behind that. And our top 3, I would say, were the lucky ones to avoid that. And I think all of us are kind of clamoring for a replay, and we might have to put this in slow motion because so much stuff has happened. Let's take a look at Shirakawa. And like I said, Shirakawa is so good off the line on the starts. His starts are rapid.
He gets a jump start.
Well, he almost gets a jump start. The car bobbles up, and we saw that with derecho as well. That green lights, you get to see on how well he can get off the line, and he's immediately looking for that inside line. Now look at the car on his right. It's starting to push him over to his left a little bit. He backs off, and that just kind of left him just a little bit of room, and unfortunate. Right, and there's Eddie Samborsa getting into the back of Shirakawa. Got cars shooting off, and you can see the right-hand pit exit opening up. But at that point, it's just a great wall of Formula Renault cars, and unfortunately, it's a parking lot at this point. We got cars flipping over. You know what? This is kind of a replay of what it was looking at Best Buy on Black Friday early in the morning when those doors open and people wanted to get those deals. Unfortunately enough, well, fortunately enough for those people, they did not have a damage model. Everyone made their shopping and got those deals all safely. Unfortunately, in iRacing, we have damage models, and not everybody can get through those doors, get those Black Friday savings. But I believe Apex Racing Academy has a little bit of Black Friday savings. Am I right?
I do believe you are, Austin. I was just enthralled to watch. I do believe it was James Byrne. He just came to a stop, just watched everybody sort of part ways up ahead of him, and then made his way through. That's how he managed to get up into 6th spot. Just to let you know, viewers and Austin as well, Mehmet Taski is still driving around the circuit at the moment, or at least he was. He is. He's just completed the 2nd lap. He's currently got no rear wing or front wing. The car is crabbing. There you see him on the screen at the moment. It's quite a valiant effort, if I'm honest, to take that car around. There is no way he can do 20 more laps. He's surely got to come into the pits. He's already being lapped by half the field. He's already been lapped by a few drivers. He just needs to get out of the way. He just needs to get off the circuit, because I think we could be seeing another huge incident if Taski loses control of that car, which, by judging by the damage, would be so easy to do.
Well, Taski, I think he's just getting a few laps in and making sure that he can get this. But if he heads into the pits, that's his race over. And I feel like he's just going to try to complete as many laps as he can. He's being really safe about it. Off the line and being pretty slow. Well, he is definitely slow, but I do not think he is intentionally trying to get in anybody's way. But that was... some drivers just want to make it onto the race, and some drivers just want to enjoy the race and just don't want to... go back and wait for another one. But onto our fight for the lead, onto our leader, Sergio Macias, at his home track. It is currently Spain leading out this race, followed by Wajzimajski and Pizzica, the Italian, and the... I'm bad at flags. You're going to have to help me out, Sebastian.
What flag was that, Austin?
Eric.
Eric Wise or my ski, I do believe that is a...
Let's all go.
Polish flag. Thank you very much, Polish. Thank you very much, producer in our ears. You know,
I thought it was Polish.
I
thought it was Polish.
So too. But you don't want to go wrong.
Yes.
Live on air. Tell you what, Macias's lap times have been fairly stellar so far. Currently in the 1 minute 25s, Eric Wajzimajski last lap a 26 flat, so about 0.4 of a second quicker on that last lap. There you see the lap times on your screen. So Macias really has lost the challenge that he would have had from Carlos Dreschko. So it's all about managing the car, managing the tyres. Of course, Barcelona renowned for being a tyre killer. Tyre wear won't necessarily be so much of an issue this length of race, but it is all about tyre heat and thermal management. So Macias can just drive to the pace that he wants to. It's all about management. And Wajzimajski, well, he needs to sort of throw that all out the window and push as hard as he can. But as it looks like it at the moment, Austin, Sergio Macias looking very, very good for a race win today.
Yeah, Macias 2 seconds in the lead. Well, he had the better starting position. Eric has jumped up 6 spots, and he was the first car, I believe, that went into the pit exit to take advantage of avoiding everybody. But yeah, speaking of bringing the heat, let's look at the weather right now as Wajzimajski puts in a 1:10 faster lap time on Sergio Macias, and Eric is definitely putting some heat in the tires. But yeah, the on-track temperature is going to be deciding this race and how much Eric has to push to catch up to him and how much he has left in the tank to push. And we do have fuel in these cars, but nobody ever refuels them because there is no pit stops in these cars. We did have one driver one time say, I might go for a pit stop in the middle of the race and try to do something like that, but that wasn't in a official Formula 3.5 race. That was during a league race that goes just a little bit longer than the actual Formula 3.5 races, where they kind of have to, ooh, that's wide by Pizzica. and he messes himself up in that little section right there. Goes off the track just slightly, and here comes Belmonte. Belmonte going to capitalize on this drive right now, looking for third.
I think we both stepped back from our monitors when Pizzica went a little bit wide through turn 8. There's a nasty curve on the exit that can really send the car flying. You would have seen in real life drivers being caught out by that very curve. It could be also damaging to a Formula 3.5 car, especially to the under tray. Although actually, with the amount of cars that we've got running at the moment, we've only realistically got 9 cars that are in the competitive running. Omar Baha, Phil Reed and Samborski are out on the circuit, but they're lapping fairly off the pace. So 9 cars that have got sort of somewhat pace. But if you do get a little bit of damage, you're not going to lose that many places. So I wonder if also we're going to see drivers start to abuse the track limits just a little bit more, maybe take a little bit more risks with hitting a few high curves, because if they end up coming off worse, if they end up getting damage, they're not actually going to lose that many places, and it might be worth the risk. Very intriguing race coming up in the next couple of laps or so, even though we've only got realistically 9 cars left in the race.
In the words of Gunther Steiner regarding Mick Schumacher, he cost us too much money. You never want to damage the car. And also the words of my crew chief in USF 2000, don't do that either. You're paying for it. Luckily, you don't have to pay for damage repairs in iRacing. If that happened, I'm pretty sure the service would have a lot less drivers, but a lot more safer drivers.
I
shouldn't have mentioned that on the broadcast. They're going to put that in there, and everyone's going to blame me.
Well, I mean, thank God that it was sim racing, because if you think about, how many incidents that we had at the start, it would have been horrendous, and it's a real illustrator of why the halo is widespread in modern day motorsport, because that, I think, it was a huge incident, and actually it's not that uncommon. It was just sort of a disagreement. Well, Samborski, not Samborski, it was Shirakawa and Dreshko just getting a little bit too close together. Wheel-to-wheel contact, and that's what ended with started the issue. Get my words all mixed up, but it's so easy to happen. I'm surprised we don't see more incidents like that in real life, although I don't think cars necessarily react like that. But then again, I'm not a real driver, Austin, so what do I know?
The initial contact, yes, and then the cars hop around like a kangaroo, no. Then again, we do have some Australians in the server, so maybe. I don't know how cars perform down there. They are driving upside down.
Well, I didn't want to say they were acting like a kangaroo, but let's be honest, that was pretty much what they were doing. Cal Young,
I've used that comparison for about 3 years now, whenever broadcasting this series, and it's pretty fitting because these suspension and the way that suspension works on iRacing, when it's not supposed to, in the ways that it's not supposed to work, provides some pretty hilarious results on the old damage model. It's fixed now on the newer damage model. You get a lot less than that, but the Formula 3.5 is on the old damage model, and it provides some chuckle-worthy moments.
I think it certainly does. I'm just looking at Cal Young's lap time. He's starting to gain on Dennis Cornu. Yaha Aiken as well, leading this battle. This is for 7th place overall. Just a little bit slower than the 2 behind him. So this is starting to get a little bit interesting, the battle for 7th. And if they can make their way past Aiken as quickly as possible, Burns up ahead is looking like a realistic target. So a little bit of an incentive for Cornu and Young to get the foot down.
Cornu looking up onto the inside and just passing him with ease down towards the inside and up into 7th place. And the other 2 are staying with him right there. Ankin and Cal Young right behind him. Cal Young looking to charge up there, but it looks like he's playing a little bit more safe. A very tight line by Dennis Cornu coming out of turn 3, trying to already break that draft up from Yaya Anis Antkin, as Cal Young is trying to chase him down as well. But yeah, Cornu is really flying through this second sector, and he definitely knows on how to go around here pretty fast. And we get to see on how much Yaya was holding him up, because he's nearly a second clear of him right now within 10 corners.
And all this means is Cal Young is just losing so much time behind Dennis Cornu, because Young managed to catch up to Dennis Cornu. So it stands to reason that Young has around or about the same pace as the 7th place driver at the moment. So Young, he would have looked and seen what Dennis Cornu did how he managed to get past Yaha, and he will be trying to emulate that. I think there's a little bit of DRS usage for Dennis Cornelius, so I wouldn't be surprised if Cao Young wasn't hitting that DRS button, getting oh so close before they even entered the final corner of turn 13. Really, really close racing, but that's compromised Tim Austin. It's going to be a little bit more of a challenging overtake than he would have liked.
If this is challenging, it looks like he's playing Battleship, and there's one spot left on the board, and that's exactly where Yaya's boat was, because Cao Young passed him with ease on the front straightaway DRS, even with a bad exit, but he got that done right there. Cao Young into 8th, and James Byrne is up there into 6th place. And we remember James Byrne pretty much parked his car, watched the show, ate a little bit of popcorn at the drive-in movie theater, and then got on with his race at 6th place. And I believe we have the James Byrne replay. Do we?
I think we do, Austin. I'm utterly looking forward to this one.
James Byrne had an issue.
I don't think we're getting the pictures of James Byrne start, but I do believe everybody at home is. But James Byrne just came to a stop, didn't he, Austin? It was such a good strategy for him, and it ended up just being such an intelligent move, and he's ended up in 6th place because of it.
Pretty much when you start that low and you just see all this happening right now, you just park the bus, you watch it, and then you continue on. And I'm watching the replay off the YouTube feed right now. You see the smoke in the air, you just hit the brakes, go onto the inside, and just watch everything. And you actually see, I believe, his father trying to do exactly the same thing, but Jamie locked up the wheels and crashed into the inside wall. So other drivers are trying to do it, but unfortunately the brakes on these cars, it's cold tires, it's so easy to lock up the brakes, and James kept on going. Jamie, unfortunately, could not continue on. Cars that have gone to the pits now, complete full-on, either in the first lap or second lap, is Omar Baja, Phil Reed, Eddie Samborski, Mehmet, Emery Taski, Theodore Burns, Bruno Canoves, Miguel Crespo, Jamie Bird, Ian Keeman, Yuki Shirakawa, Carlos Derecho, and Jorge Lopez Exposito. May they race in peace because those cars are destroyed.
Yeah, surprised in fact that
Omar Baja, Reed, and Samborski are still out there right now. They just managed to get out of the pits. Eddie Samborski, 4 minutes in the pit box.
I'm surprised that Baja, Reed, and Zamborski were able to continue. It looked like they each had a lot of damage to their cars. Must have gotten a little bit lucky with how iRacing has assigned them the damage. But Baja out there at the moment, not looking too bad. Last lap, though, a 1 minute 27.4 compared to your race leader, Sergio Macias, 25.7. Talking of lap times, Simone Pizzica was on an absolutely barnstorming lap. Sets a new fastest lap of the race for good measure. Watch out for Simone Pizzica. He could be looking at getting a 2nd place at the moment. He was about 0.4 of a second quicker than Weiser ahead of him. A little bit of time before he's in that sort of 1 second, 1.5 second range to grab a little bit of slipstream. But Simone Pizzica, one to watch at this phase of the race.
Yeah, Pizzica very fast and very rapid. We all know on how quick Pizzica is. He always seems to challenge everybody around there. He's so good. It's just he has a little bit of a up and down roller coaster with his I rating, but he can just get into that groove and go back into that form that we all know he is. He is the lowest I rating driver of the series, and Piemonte has had an issue in 4th place, a big all-track for Javier Piemonte behind him.
Javier Piemonte losing a whole heap of time. Luckily for him, Anders Sandberg was just a little bit further behind him, but Bonamati really struggling.
Seconds.
Just by 12 seconds.
And I feel like this was... I feel like this was about... I'm going to have to say turn 5. Turn 5, that dreaded hard braking zone into that left-hander. Just got a little bit too wide and onto the gravel. And yep, here we are, turn 5. You can see how close he was. Closing in on the cars ahead of him. And, oh, it's actually turn 6. And we saw Pizzica have this same incident, but a big slide through there and trip through the gravel trap. But Piemonte stays in 4th place, and kind of backing up what you said earlier, that it's okay to take a few risks. You've got a safety net under you. Yeah,
certainly so. I was sort of saying that I don't think we've ever seen a Formula 3.5 race with this much field spread. Of course, we've got some fairly obvious reasons of why that's occurred, but yeah, you've got no real incentive not to take those risks. In Simone Pizzica, I mean, why not try and go for the fastest lap of the race? Why not try and go for the fastest lap of the racing week either? You've got no real incentive out there to keep it clean. you know, especially if you are Bonamati, you've still got 11 seconds or so to Sandberg behind you. Only really the drivers that have to watch their off tracks are the top three. Certainly Simone Pizzica, because he is gaining rapidly on Weiser-Maisky, already down to just under a second. And I don't know if Eric Weiser-Maisky has picked up a little bit of damage. He's overheated his tyres, but Simone Pizzica has just got so much more pace at the moment. And actually, Weiser-Maisky starting to fall off the back of Sergio Macias for good measure.
Yeah, Weiser-Maisky's falling off. It looks like those tires are falling off for him, and he might be under pressure by Pizzica very soon. 1.1 seconds. There's Pizzica right there. Pizzica, we saw him put in the fastest lap of the race, a 125.7 for Weiser-Maisky, and the 125.6. Pizzica is closing in, and he's getting a little bit of that track. And I feel like Pizzica was using his DRS down that front straightaway right there and is closing that gap really well. Pizzica might be looking for second place very soon.
Weiser-Maisky just looks like the car is a little bit tardy through the direction changes of turns 1 and 2, which would indicate that the tyres may be just a little bit hot at this phase of the race. 10 laps to go, still enough time just to ease off the pace a little bit, allow the surface temperature of the tyre to cool down by a couple of degrees or so, and that allows you to really get that grip back that Eric might be losing at the present moment. Runs a little bit wide through turn 8 for good measure, through turn 9, the flat out corner. Actually on this lap, Simone Pizzica starting to fall away from Eric Weiser-Maisky, so I wonder a few laps previously if Eric Weiser-Maisky was just conserving his tyres. Austin has now brought them under control and is now starting to push them again, but really enthralling battle. And if Sergio Macias goes through the same tyre phase, he could be starting to fall back into the clutches of Weiser-Maisky and Simone Pizzica. This race is certainly far from over.
Yeah, race is far from over right now as we continue it on. Pizzica, well, he has to deal with Weiser-Maisky getting back onto form, but Pizzica, once again, pretty much identical lap time as last lap, a 125.6, 0.2 faster than Eric ahead of him. Eric, like he said, just might have overheated those tires just slightly and trying to get them back under control before he can go back to pushing again. But how far is that going to last him? Because Pizzica is closing in ever so slightly. 0.8 is the gap right now between Pizzica and Eric right now as they head through turn 4.
Really difficult to follow around the Barcelona circuit. It's one of the defining characteristics when Formula 1 or any open wheel series really heads to this circuit. So you almost need to have a lot of momentum behind you, and Pizzica can't really afford to get stuck in Weiser-Maisky's dirty air. He always needs to sort of save up a little bit and go for one really big push lap to try and sort of break that sort of 6-7 tenths barrier, get really close and make the move, maybe down into turn 1. Cornu, he's managed to catch the back of James Byrne, so Dennis Cornu managed to get past Yaha Ennis-Atkin a few laps ago. He's now caught up to James Byrne. He could be looking at a top 6, which would be a great place to finish, of course, after making his way through the chaos, which was the opening few meters.
Yeah, the virtual drivers by TX3. Frenchman Dennis Cornu, driver of the number 13, chasing down James Byrne ahead of him. James, well, pretty much was parking the bus, as we saw earlier in the broadcast, to avoid that incident. Dennis Cornu had a little bit more hairy incident at the start, but both of them made it through there. James Byrne plus 14 spots, Dennis Cornu plus 8 from their qualifying position. And that pretty much shows how much headway that they had to avoid that. And I feel like Dennis Cornu also had a park the bus moment, but instead of onto the inside, he was on the outside behind most of the cars, and he was parked a lot more. But Cornu, we know on how quick he is, as you get to see him closing that gap through turns 1, 2, and through that long turn 3. A little bit of an offline moment off the exit of turn 3. The back end just slipped out just a bit, but as we head through turn 4, you can see him getting all the way out to the outside of the track and actually catching a little bit of grass. But he's caught the car, but that might overheat the tires just a little bit and may prolong this battle for another lap.
Certainly will. Unusual mistake there from Cornu. We have to try and recollect himself. Gets also close to that turn 8 curb. You can see the race flash before his very eyes, but Byrne goes wide on the exit. Can't do that too often. In fact, there's a nasty little bit of a slowdown on the exit there if you run a little bit too wide. So He won't want to be affording to do that many more times at this race. Wajzomajski, just to give you a little bit of an update for the battle for second and third. So it's a new personal best, 2/10 quicker than Simone Pisica. Wajzomajski finding a little bit of pace out there, and in fact has brought the gap down between Macias and Wajzomajski down 6/10 in the last lap or so. So Eric Wajzomajski looking very quick at the moment.
Yeah, Eric is looking quick. He is speeding up, just put in his personal best, and yeah, 2/10 faster than Sergio and Pisica. So Eric looks like his tires are back in the green to continue this pushing, but he's got a 2.5 second gap to close down on Sergio. He is definitely looking for Sergio to make a mistake, but we know on how fast Sergio is. He started up on pole. He knows his way around here. It was a Spanish 1-2 here in Barcelona, and he definitely wants that W here today.
Oh, he most definitely does. Simone Pisica, it almost feels like that charge, that pace that he had is sort of petered out at the moment. I wonder if he's now going through that tire phase that Wajzomajski was going through a few laps ago. You just get the sense that Macias is either just not pushing as much as he can, sets a fairly quick, fairly middling lap. Actually, Simone Pisica, scrap all of what I've just said.
He's making you eat your words right there.
While I was talking, that's a new record.
Belmonte hops up in there as well, just beats him by 1/100th of a second. Belmonte sets a 125.4. But yeah, I totally understand where you're going. A few years back, I believe they were Pirellis, but also in the IndyCar series with Firestone, they had this issue where the tires, middle of the race, they would have this graining effect where they went from good to bad, but after that graining phase, they went back to good. And drivers throughout the middle of the race would have to manage their tires and get them through that graining phase and kind of bully them into getting to the real good stuff underneath that tire layer right there and really activate the tire once again. And there are some drivers who can really manage that well and some other drivers who really couldn't. And it was very entertaining but confusing to watch as well. But we have had that issue in Formula 1 and IndyCar. As that is a lockup by Wajzomajski. He goes off in the gravel and into the wall.
I think he got a little bit distracted by the lap car of Phil Reed. Phil Reed got out of the way, but Wajzomajski couldn't spot his braking zone.
Dennis Cornu's off as well. He just lost a spot to Cal Young. And Cornu at turn 6. I feel like I know what's happened right here. Remember what happened to Belmonte a while back at turn 6? Car spun on the entry of 6, and I feel like that's exactly happened what to Dennis Cornu right there. But this is what happened to Eric Wajzomajski. We saw it live on our screen, but yeah, as you said, lap car on his inside, locked up the brakes, heading into turn 10 right here. And yeah, there is Phil Reed on his inside. Just make sure he's past there, and oh, just the latest of the late braking. Man, brakes just, slow down the car. It was able to continue on without damage, but here is what happened to Dennis Cornu, chasing down James Byrne. This would be the fight for 6th place, heading into turn 6. And, yep, nearly identical to Belmonte's, but with an added spin of flavor right there. Got turned around and decided to kick it back onto the track, onto the racing line, and continue on right there. Cornu down into 9th place behind Anakin. He's going to have to make this overtake again. And who's behind Cal Young and James Byrne? Cornu back down to 9th place. This race still got a lot of action right now with just about 5 laps remaining here in Spain.
Certainly a lot more to deliver. Simone Pisica 2.4 seconds off the back of Sergio Macias. Of course, it was Wajzomajski that was around about that time away from Sergio Macias. Look at that lap time from Simone Pisica. Almost into the 1:24, 0.5 of a second quicker than your race leader, Simone Pisica. He's found a little bit of pace out there. What you were saying, Austin, about the tyres graining a few seasons ago with a different tyre manufacturer, almost seems that we're going through something similar today. We've had a little bit of a lull in the lap times, just drivers just managing sort of being in the late 1:25s, but Simone Pisica finding a whole chunk of pace out there, really trying to go for this race win in the final 4 laps or so.
You want to know why? When Eric made his mistake, he was a second ahead of him. He was being affected by dirty air. Now no dirty air is affecting him right now, and he was able to close in half a second right there. Pizka could go on to win this race.
He most certainly could. He just needs to be aware and not end up like Eric Weiser-Maisky making a mistake, making an error that costs him the race win. Actually, and it'll be interesting to see how Sergio Macias deals with this pressure in the final 4 laps of this race. You can see on your relative, all the drivers will have a real-time gap between themselves and the car behind, and you start to feel the pressure when you see that gap closing down, and it's really difficult to almost detach yourself from focusing in on the relative and just driving the best laps you can. So Pizka now within 2 seconds. New fastest lap as well.
Again. New fastest lap, 3/10 faster this time. Pizka is closing in 1.8 seconds. 8/10 till he gets starting to get really affected by that draft, and you get kind of into that dead air bubble with these Formula 3.5 cars are affected by dirty air. And it is about 1.1 seconds where you really feel that. And we do have DRS in these cars, but it is a user-activated thing, not a system-activated thing. As we see Dennis Cornu once again closing in on Yaya and his Ankin. This brings us back to that 3-car fight, but Cornu, he's lined up on that gearbox, goes down towards the inside, side by side they go, and Cornu, well, pretty much making it 2 for 2, overtaking attempts on Ankin right there. I would actually say 2 for 4, because we did see him try for 2 laps and he wasn't able to do it because he was in a train. But now that he's free, he is able to make that move pretty easily. Up through the field, Anders Sandberg, number 17, up 9 spots from where they started. Currently doing 125.7s. Under pressure by Jamesburg behind him, 2 seconds behind him, and up ahead is 8 seconds. And I would say Sandberg is the winner of the second leg of the race of the driver's hat. You can see that pretty visible gap between the top 4 and then everybody else. And these were the drivers majorly affected by the incident. Eric had that crash at turn 10 that we just went through, and that's why he's sitting there 16 seconds behind Sergio. And so I would say this is the second place of race number 2.
Yeah, sorry, I had a little bit of an audio cut out there, so I didn't quite catch what you said at the end, but what you're saying about Sandberg leading the sort of the second half of the race is certainly true. He's done a great job and really just lapping away. His lap times, I've been watching them, have been super consistent, basically been in the 1 minute 25.7s to 0.8s, really consistent, and that's given him a really good stead looking at getting a top 5 finish. I've also been checking out that gap between Macias and Pizka. Remained fairly stagnant, if anything. Macias gaining a few tenths or so. So I think that battle that we were hoping for to end off this race for the lead might not be coming our way anytime soon.
Yeah, it's not really going to come home to a battle, but hey, nothing ever does. But you know what? It's always positive to hope for it, but they were still, even with an incident, they still brought that gap pretty close together with each other. But Barcelona, as a track, it's kind of difficult to close in on the car ahead, especially when they're high downforce like these cars. You just get that dirty air and it just blows all proportion out of trying to keep the car stable to close down. It's not as bad as the F1 car, the 2021 Mercedes car on the service, soon to be replaced by the 2022 Mercedes car, which I got a good feeling is going to be very popular for a lot of these drivers, because sources tell me good things going to happen.
Ooh, a little bit of intrigue to finish off the broadcast today. I like it, Austin. I like it very much. Of course, we're getting into the end of the season. Only one race to go after tonight's action. We head to Phillip Island, which should always be a good race to watch. Tell you what though, Bonamati's had a great recovery drive in third after that mistake. Got a little bit lucky with Eric's incident and going off at turn 10, but still a great drive from Bonamati and a really good home showing for their race in Barcelona.
Indeed, and I feel like everybody is going to be happy because we got 2 Spaniards on the podium right now. Bonamati sitting in third, and Macias currently sitting at the top of the table right now. And as he comes around the final corner, the white flag is in the air. One more lap to go here at Barcelona.
So Simone Pietica needs about 2.5 seconds on this final lap. That's sort of those lap times that Pietica was able to muster a few laps ago. Not anywhere to be found now into the late 1 minute 25. So I wonder if he's burnt out his tyres a little bit too early on. But Sergio Macias just needs to survive one lap and he will be the victor at his home race.
He certainly will. James Byrne, he's got one more lap to hold off 6th place of Cal Young. Cal Young, we know on how fast he's been doing. He's been chasing down Byrne throughout this race. They got one more lap to go, and Cal Young is closing down on Byrne. DRS is activated by both of their drivers. Byrne stays ahead of Young, but 2 tenths separate them right now as they fly into turn 1, 2, and 3. And I'm going to be honest, this is one of my most favorite sectors of corners, especially when you're fighting not in a high downforce car. No, in sports cars, MX-5s, Skippies, this section of track is so much fun, especially for side-by-side action, because 1 second you're having the advantage and 1 second you're not, then you're back to having the advantage, and it's just all about managing tire grip. And a slow car, Barcelona is magical. In these high downforce cars, it's all about that front straightaway. And to your home driver, Sergio Macias, it is all about this last corner and all about your knowledge of the track. Sergio Macias wins it at home in Barcelona.
Great race by the 3 car. Got a little bit lucky with that start line incident, managed to get away and into the sunset, but still had to push. Had to deal with the pressure from Simone Pietica, dealt with it absolutely sublimely, and takes a really, really well-deserved race win here tonight.
It certainly was a well-earned win, and Cal Young is just closing, but it's just too little too late. Byrne, James Byrne, parked the bus, park it in a 6th place. James Byrne with a fantastic, smart drive off that chaos off the line. Got himself up into 6th place. Dennis Cornu is up into 8th. Pretty much everybody in your top 10 gained iRating and gained spots in Eddie Samborski. Oh no, that's not how you want to end the race. At turn 10, goes off the track. He's missing an engine cover, and this is going to be a race that all of our regulars are not going to look back on, but it's for Sergio. This is definitely going to be a race he can look back and have a big smile on his face for as he takes his win here at Barcelona. And I would say the dream finish has come true. A Spaniard wins in Spain.
Certainly so. Macias soaking it all in as he makes his way back to the pit lane. Of course, you don't have to do it in iRacing, but when you're the race winner, somehow you tend to just be a little bit more inclined to do a little bit of an in-lap. But Austin, take us through our race results.
This race belongs to Sergio as he takes the win here at Barcelona as he brings it into the pit lane right behind us. Simone Pietica finishes in 2nd, followed by Javier Piemonte. 2 Spaniards on the podium here today, followed by Eric Weisemeiski, Anders Sandberg, James Byrne, Cal Young, Dennis Cornu, Yaya Ennis, Ankin, Omar Baha, Phil Reed, and Eddie Samborski. And then Mehmet Taski, who actually gains 5 iRating. He was doing that to make sure that anybody else who was involved in that incident can't pass him again. So Mehmet finishing 13th, and then everybody else did not finish the race if they were involved in that opening lap incident. Bruno Canavas, Miguel Crespo, Theodore Burns, Jamie Byrne, Jorge Lopez, Carlos Derecho, Yuki Shirakawa, and then Jorge Lopez Exposito. Their race ended and identified by that order by how far that they can push their broken cars. But yeah, that is going to be the end. Oh, and I Am Keyman was in there as well. iRacing in our lifetime, and we were having a little bit of discussion, and it said it doesn't really matter. They all didn't finish lap 1, so it gets kind of iffy right there. But yeah, what a way to kick off the final week of the iRacing Formula 3.5 Championship to end out the 2022 Season 4 and the 2022 year. Before we head on to 2024, though, 2023, though, we have one more race to go, and that's Phillip Island. Sebastian, how are we looking forward to Phillip Island?
Oh, absolutely ecstatic. I mean, it was such a good race last season. In fact, last season it was the only race that Eddie Samborski didn't win. He hasn't had so much good luck this season, but it just has such a great mix of a long straight that goes into a tricky turn one. It's not flat out, but it's not a big braking zone. It's really, really skilled stuff. Drivers adore Phillip Island. We adore Phillip Island, and I'm sure it is the perfect place to round out what has been an absolutely sensational season.
It certainly has been a sensational season, and yeah, I think we're just getting started. Phillip Island, such a fun track, a lot of high speed, a lot of action, and I can't wait for y'all to see it as we send off into the final week of the iRacing Formula 3.5 Championship here from Apex Racing TV. I've been joined by Sebastian Bosher-Williams with Jamie Fluke in the production booth. I'm Austin Knight, and I hope y'all have a good night.
Are you struggling for consistency in your sim racing? Does your iRating look like a roller coaster? If so, we have good news for you. The way to get more consistent is to first understand what you're doing differently than the professionals. And VRS is the answer. With our competitive subscription, you will have the telemetry, setups, tutorials, and everything else you need to fully analyze your driving. Our data packs and the ability to compare your driving with the best in the world will show you exactly where to adjust your inputs, change your driving line, and shave seconds off of your lap times. And our powerful and precise Direct Force Pro wheelbase and precision pedals are being used by some of the world's best drivers. All these champions agree that VRS hardware is not just the best on the market, it's also priced well below the competition. So if you're looking to upgrade to direct drive and the best pedals in sim racing, VRS is your answer. If you want to get better, get faster, and make it happen sooner rather than later, you owe it to yourself to find out why so many people are switching to VRS. You'll be so glad that you did. Visit www.virtualracingschool.com and learn why the best use VRS.